Rush hour in Washington, D.C. Commuters must choose between traffic jams or taking the train. One of the train systems serving the Maryland suburbs is known as the MARC train. Eastbound routes from Brunswick approach Washington through the suburb of Silver Spring. This line also carries one of the country's busiest long-distance express trains, the Capital Limited, westbound, Washington to Chicago. At 5:20 p.m. on February 16, 1996, the Capital Limited was preparing to depart. Its regular single daily run is still in the timetable today. 164 passengers boarded on the day in question. The travelers settled into their seats. Those going all the way to Chicago were looking at an 18-and-a-half-hour journey. There was no reason to feel unsafe. The dinner menu occupied their attention as the express train gradually gathered speed.
Dinner reservations. Dinner reservations.
MARC Train 286 was a train like this, with single-deck passenger cars. On February 16th, there were only 20 passengers, many of them co-workers returning to Washington after a training course. Many were tired after a long day, the train rocking them almost to sleep. But they were on a collision course with an express train at a closing speed of 70 miles an hour.
Fire department, how can I help you?
There's a train that derailed. It is on fire.
Is it a freight train or is it a passenger
train? It looks
train?
like an Amtrak train.
A passenger train derailed. From the first call, emergency response teams feared the worst.
And it's on fire, you say?
Yes.
Okay, we're on the way for that.
Neighbors couldn't believe the scene that was unfolding.
I was, looking out the windows, first thing I seen was just like train on top of train, fire, smoke everywhere.
11 passengers were killed. Some were crushed on impact. Others suffered a more terrible death, trapped inside the MARC train, doors jammed shut, the windows unbreakable.
It was just burning, twisted, kids screaming. It was a very eerie scene, kids coming in and out of smoke, banging on the window itself.
A diesel tank on the express train had sheared off and burst, spraying fuel inside the MARC train.
I just jumped on the train and started kicking the windows and jumped down and tried to get rocks and threw at the windows. It would not break. This glass was impossible to break.
Images of the disaster were on TV within minutes.
As soon as I saw it on television, I knew I needed to respond. It was pretty clear as soon as we arrived on scene that the two trains hit each other at a crossover, a junction between tracks. In a situation like that, your first response is that there's a signals failure.
What color signal was being displayed at the crucial moment? The answer was 700 miles away. Washington's signal system is run from a control room in Jacksonville, Florida.
Tower 305 radio check.
We determined that the signal system had functioned properly. It had displayed the proper signal for the Amtrak train, was coming toward that signal and then going from one track to another track on a crossover. The MARC train had a stop signal, and he was supposed to have stopped in advance of the crossing.
Investigators looked for any clue that might help explain the driver's actions.
We considered that the weather could have been a factor. Because it was in fact snowing, maybe you couldn't see the signal. After talking with other engineers that had been in the area, we decided that the weather was not a factor either.
All the fatalities were on the MARC train, including the driver and 2 crew members in the cab with him. For investigators, it was now pure detective work, but without the key witnesses. Again and again, investigators tried to relive the last few moments of MARC train 286. What had the driver actually seen? First, a yellow warning signal, meaning prepare to stop at the next set of lights, 2 miles further down the track. Then a stop at Kensington to pick up passengers. But why had the driver accelerated after a warning of danger ahead? This is what he saw approaching a blind bend at 60 miles an hour. Suddenly a signal showing red. The driver immediately hit the brakes. As a last desperate measure, he threw the train motor into reverse, but with this much track remaining, it was too late to stop.